Is love a fleeting feeling or a devotion that gives purpose to our life? Sri Ganeshan's story, Love is Waiting, raises this profound question. Sir, have you come to Coimbatore prior to this? Broker Punusami asked this question just to break the ice. He was feeling awkward about the silence of the dignified senior citizen who never spoke a word with him in the car and seemed to be lost in some deep thought right after starting from the five-star restaurant. So after a moment's silence, Raghuvaran responded, 40 years back, I used to stay here and I was working in a mill for about 3 years. After that, I'm coming back here only now. Is it? Have you noticed what a transformation this place has undergone? In those days, in which residential area did you live in, sir? Raghuvaran did not respond. He pretended as though he had not heard the question. One answer would generate another question, then another. So he was in no mood to continue the conversation. He was lost in his thoughts. For a brief spell, Punusami waited for his response and then he sank into silence. But Punusami's question sparked off memories of the spring of his life. Today, Raghuvaran owns properties worth crores, many expensive cars and bungalows in Mumbai. Those were days when he circled these streets in Coimbatore on an old bicycle. At times, a beautiful young girl would be seated on the back seat of the bicycle, holding his shoulder. There was an indescribable charm and thrill in those trips. He was a tenant in a portion of that girl's father's house. He loved her to death those days. He was the love of her life too. During those 3 years, he wrote several poems. Her joy knew no bounds when his first poem was published in a magazine. The feeling that disappears when your lover is unseen, the poem went like this. The feeling that disappears when your lover is unseen is not love. Love waits. Once, amazed, she asked him, how are you able to write such beautiful poetry? Poetry comes naturally when you're with me, he replied with a smile. It was certainly true. After parting from her, Raghuvaran has never written a single poem. The day he found another good job and left for Bombay, those days it was Bombay, tears glistening, she asked him, surely you will come back, right? I'll be waiting here for you. Raghuvaran also left with the intention of coming back and asking her father for her hand. But after a few years, when a wealthy man in Bombay put up a proposal to marry off his daughter to him and also offered a good deal of money, his parents advised him to be practical. They said such an opportunity would never come again. At first, Raghuvaran refused to accept the proposal, citing that he was in love and he had to go back to Coimbatore. But his father suggested, be practical. Love started to dissipate when Raghuvaran started thinking practically. He married that rich woman. The business started with the seed money given by his father-in-law and gave multifold profits. 2 sons were born. Love and poetry became old legends when the money he pursued in life was found. At times, old memories did pop up. Raghuran's conscience would remind him that the sweetness of those 3 years in life was never there any time later. This thought would last only for a few minutes. Then he would again turn practical as before. Such was the way of life. Everything was conveniently forgot, or so he thought. A business associate's son was getting married in Coimbatore, and Raghuvaran had to come there for it. It was just before he started for Coimbatore that the thought flashed in his mind. What if he bought a piece of land there or a old building there and constructed a house in the town where he was an ordinary mill worker? That is why he shared his thought with his friend in the course of a casual conversation that he wished to buy a house in Araspuram where he used to live. The friend conveyed this to a broker. The consequence was this journey in the car with Punasamy. Now, for some unknown reason, the thought of the girl he was in love with kept haunting him. It occurred to him that she too probably was settled somewhere in some part of the country or the world with her grandchildren. Would she also rewind the past at times the way he was doing now? He wondered. The place we are going to visit now, sir, is of 10 cents area. There are 2 old portions. The owner is selling it off because he wants to get his daughter married and he needs the money for the wedding expenses. The wedding is very soon, just the next month. So we can negotiate and lower the price a little. They need the money very urgently. So they will accept her offer. Raghuvaran looked out of the window, amused, thinking that silence seemed to be unbearable torture for this Purnasamy. The town had changed a lot, like he himself had, he thought. Purnasamy continued talking, even though he didn't get any response from Raghuvaran. The owner of the house, sir, he has gone to Tirunallaru. There's nothing to see actually in that house. Okay. It is very old and dilapidated. You in any way plan to demolish it and reconstruct a new house there, isn't it? Our driver, you can stop here. Stop here. This is the place. Raghuvaran sat in the car, transfixed for a moment. The place shown by Purnasamy was the same house where he once lived. In an area surrounded by bungalows, the 2-portion tiled roof house alone where he used to stay remained stuck in time. Nothing has changed about that house, but everything around has changed. So he was not able to even recognize that locality. Is this what destiny is all about? He toughened himself up and got out of the car. Although the next portion was locked, the portion of the house where he stayed was not locked. It was clear the windows were open. Who lives in this house, Purnasamy? The owner has an elder sister. She's deranged, sir. That's why they have left her at home and gone to Tirunallaru. They have not taken her with them. Oh, I want to go inside the house and see. Purnasamy panicked. Oh, sir, don't. That place where that insane person is there certainly would be unpleasant, sir. You're going to anyway tear that house down and rebuild it. What is there to see, sir? This is the locality I wanted to show. No, it doesn't matter. I want to see. Torn in an ethical dilemma, Purnasamy looked at him hopelessly. He was feeling helpless. Fine then, come along. We will see the house. Raghuvaran knocked at the door. But the door slightly opened in as it was unlocked. But there was no noise from within. He looked at Ponusami and with his eyes asked if he could go inside. Ponusami swallowed pitifully. Until now, that demented woman has chased away with a broom all those who came to even whitewash the house, sir. The younger brother, that is the owner, even he does not go into that portion often. I am not afraid when I see even big hooligans, but I'm a little scared when it comes to crazy hits. No one can say what they will do when. All right, Punasami, I'll go. You stay here. Punasami thought for a moment and came to the conclusion that it is better. As he looked at the respectable gentleman who was going in the suit, he wondered in what state he would come back. If his clothes would be torn, and whether he had a change of clothes or not. And he took a position at a vantage point at a distance because he expected that probably he would come running out of the house and he may dash into him. Raghuvaran entered the house with his heart pounding against his chest. He felt as if he had gone back 40 years. The house was just as he had left it. No change at all. A calendar, a wall calendar, 1964, was hanging on the wall. The chair he was using, the same chair, was placed in the center of the room. On that chair were the magazines in which his poems were published. He could see them, and there was one of his old diaries. Even the milk account that he used to write on the wall on a corner portion, that was also faintly visible. It seemed to him that time had stood still in the room since 1964, and he was looking at everything. Who's it? A weak voice came from the kitchen. He felt an electric shock run through his body as he looked at the direction of the voice in bewilderment. An old lady came out of the kitchen. Who's it? She asked again. What he had just perceived was a lie. Time had not stood still at all. Time had wreaked havoc on his sweetheart. She had collapsed beyond recognition. Vasanta, Raghuvaran called, but she didn't seem to recognize him. His voice did not register. I am Raghuvaran. Yes, that's his name, but he hasn't come yet. Don't you recognize who I am, Vasanta? Raghuvaran asked loudly. He doubted if she was hard of hearing. Don't make noise. He's writing a poem. He doesn't like it if you make noise when he's writing poetry. Read this magazine until he comes. There is a poem written by him on the 20th page. That poem had won first prize, you see, she said, and she picked up a magazine and gave it to him. He opened the magazine with trembling hands. The first prize poem, published with his picture on the 20th page, was right there. The poem was titled An Unanswered Account. He read his own poem again. An unanswered account. When from the one that is made up of two, one is again separated. When from the one that is made up of two, when one is again separated, what remains? I asked. They say 0 or 1. In utter ignorance, they say 0 or 1 in utter ignorance. Who can tell into how many pieces the heart left alone will break into? Who can tell into how many pieces the heart left alone will break into? Raghuvaran's eyes flooded as he read it. It was the pain of experiencing as a human being the truth of what he wrote as a poet. I didn't expect you here, Vasanta. I just came here to buy this house. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Sir, this is the house where he lived. He said he will come back when he left, and he will certainly come. You will get thousands of houses for sale. Please, leave alone this house. One day, if I'm not here when he comes back, he will struggle in pain, as he has said in that poem. Sir, have you ever loved someone? Anyone? Do you understand me? Raghuvaran was heartbroken. Blood oozed from his ravished heart, he felt. He doubted whether anyone in this world was more wretched, more grievous sinner than he was. He folded his hands and with a heavy heart, he said, and a hoarse voice, Vasanta, they said an English word, practical. And I was sold out. Now I have everything except myself. This is the fruit I got for the betrayal I've done to you, Vasanta. Please forgive me, Vasanta. His words didn't seem to reach her. As she took his diary in her hand, it seemed as if she had begun to wander into a fantasy world of her own. Raghuvaran stood there like a statue, cast in stone, for a long time, looking at her, his heart growing heavier by the minute. She seemed to have forgotten his presence there. She was lost in the diary. When he came out, Punusami was leaning on the car and talking to the driver and looking at the house. When he saw Raghuvaran coming out, he came running towards him. Thank God, sir. Fortunately, that deranged woman didn't harm you. He was really happy. He said while going back in the car, the moment the house is sold out, they will just pack up that lunatic and leave the house in the next minute, sir. You don't have to worry at all. You'll have no problem clearing that house, I assure you. And you will get it at a price less than what they have quoted, as I told you. Raghuvaran said in a broken voice, but firm, Punasami, we will buy this house at the price they ask. We will not negotiate. But that lady need not vacate that house. Let us stay there as long as she's alive. I hope I'm clear, Punasami. Punasami honestly didn't understand anything, even though he answered, I understand, sir. As he started calculating the brokerage commission that he would earn from the sale, the deal, he did not bother to ask any question. Listeners, friends, I'm sure the story has touched and moved your heart, hasn't it?